Hey everybody, welcome to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast with Gorilla Gurus. Today we have our guest, David Cox from GMF, Gasparilla Music Festival. Today we also have Terry with us. And I'm Mike.
Is it Mike or McMike?
McMike.
Okay, all right. We just need to be clear about that. There's a lot of mics running around.
There are a lot of mics in this office.
Yeah.
I go by McMike so we can keep it all straight.
Nice.
Yep.
All right.
It's a nickname I've had since fourth grade. So, thanks, Miss Molly Hankins, my fourth grade teacher. That's why I have that nickname. I think what we'd like to do, we're going to talk a little bit about marketing, but the way that we talk about marketing is that we talk about how it really affects, less academic, more, okay, this is actually what has happened, this is what I can do, so people listening can maybe apply it, or at the very least be entertained by the bullshit that we talk about.
Yeah.
So
leave comments telling us about how we don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
Under the YouTube video, right?
Big fan of that.
Oh,
I'm a
armchair
huge fan.
quarterbacks. Yeah.
25 years doing this, and I have no clue. But let's start off. David, thank you very much. You've got the Gasparilla Music Festival coming up. I'm very excited to be there.
Can't wait.
I haven't missed one yet. And tell us a little bit about, before Gasparilla Music Festival, kind of in a nutshell, what's your background? Where'd you come from?
I'm from Tampa. I'm actually just in this part of the state, fifth generation. So my family's been here for a very, very long time. But anyway, grew up, born and raised in Tampa, and just had a history, even going back to high school, where I used to volunteer for the Gasparilla Arts Festival. So just had a kind of deep-rooted interest in like art events in downtown Tampa. So that's kind of the genesis for the Gasparilla Music Festival in a sense too.
Fantastic.
Now, how many years is this going to make it for the Gasparilla Music
This will be our 11th year,
11.
with last year, 2021, being our 10th year, even though we slid the event back from March to October, so that was a little off year. But yeah, it'll be our 11th year, and somewhat amazingly, and knock on wood, we were able to. Probably one of the only festivals in the world that actually had our event in 2020 and 2021. So we somehow kind of navigated around all the COVID stuff the last couple of years. So not without lots of trials and tribulations related to that, but in a sense we were able to pull it off and still throw a great festival, like despite all that stuff going on. So
That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Cool. Now, what I'm doing is making the cocktail of the day. Today's cocktail is
stuff.
the Old Fashioned. It's one of the most classic cocktails, even for people who don't drink cocktails. You've probably heard of it. The Old Fashioned, the Manhattan, and the Martini are the three bigs. Generally considered an old man drink, which is cool, because I'm an old man. I dig that.
I like how you own it.
So we're pairing up Old Fashions with the topic that we'll get to later, is good old-fashioned word of mouth. The base of all good marketing is tied into this. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. David is absolutely an expert at this. It's been the basis of what I did all of my work in the past. And Terry knows quite a bit too, which we're going to get to Terry here in a little bit. The cocktail, we started with the beginning. Now, there are two ways. There's a million ways to make it, but start with sugar. Now, the classic is you muddle a cube of sugar in with the bitters. Angostura bitters. Got my trivia on this today. Only 5 people in the world know the recipe for this. It's made with over 40 herbs and spices, but it's kind of like Coca-Cola. Only 5 people know how it's made.
Wow.
And they're not allowed on the same plane.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
The KFC original recipe. It's another.
So it was one of those two I just found out. The secret ingredient is in a vault in like Prague or something like that. Like it's in Europe in a vault.
Like in a mountain, in a vault. Somewhere.
Something crazy like that. Like there's a treasure hunt behind it. I can't wait for it to be like the highlight of a movie. Right.
Yeah.
Now, the prime ingredient here is whiskey. We're going classic with bourbon. Those are good drinks. Maybe a little sweet, but. What do we got? Woodford Reserve today?
Woodford
Reserve.
Yep.
Now, the beauty of the cocktail, and I bartended for years in New Orleans, is that you can make it with terrible bourbon, But why?
Right.
Because it's a sipper. It's not something you slam back. This is a sipper. It's something that you enjoy in company. This is why we really wanted to use this for this conversation, so that way we can relax, talk, enjoy the drink. So you put the whiskey in. You could do, I actually usually make them at home with rye. You can do it with Irish. Now Hot Trend is doing it with Scotch. But bourbon is the classic, the go-to. It is a stir drink, not a shaken drink. Booze. Probably a little too much simple syrup because it's...
You can see a little cloud in there, but that's
well,
okay.
Not so much the cloud as it's opalescing.
Okay. Is that the term for it? Opalescing?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's opalescing?
So where you really see it is if you're making absinthe, where you put the sugar in and it kind of clouds it a little bit before it turns clean, so it's got that kind of opal swirl in it.
I see.
I washed my hands before I came in.
Thank you for washing your hands.
Yeah.
We appreciate that around here, believe it or not. So speaking of that, the 2020 Gasparilla Music Festival was kind of it was a thing around town, right? There was some conversation surrounding that.
Related to...
Well, obviously related to COVID.
Oh, yeah. So
or was it 2021? Which one?
2021 was the bigger one. 2020, we were like the last event, and that next week the world shut down.
That's what it was. Okay.
And it was already a big thing. We knew it was happening because we have like RFID bands we get from China that were ordered in December 2019. That we were worried the factories are starting to shut down at the beginning of the year. So it was kind of on the radar. Last year was it became a bit of a thing for us. We had a lot of we had bands that were performing that had certain requirements for COVID policies and things like that. So we kind of got thrown into that, I guess, debate online. So you guys mentioned some comments online you get. We kind of got kind of put into the middle of that.
Well, and I think that's part of music business in general. Like, it doesn't matter. You can have the greatest show in the world and somebody's going to talk shit.
Right. Yeah. We're pretty Teflon. Proof at this point after 10 years.
You've got to be.
We've kind of heard it all.
Yeah.
But it was, I've noted this before, the first few years what we did, there really was a lot of commentary, everything we did. And then it kind of seemed to went away. And I think it just goes to like the people that come to the event, kind of the cream rises to the top, so to speak. And we really hadn't had too much of that, like sort of online vitriol until this past year. We saw a lot, and but it was it was interesting because a lot of those people aren't people that would go to our festival. They just they're just out there to kind of feed the flames in the world. So but we're a nonprofit. We're very agnostic politically, all those things. We don't really have any reason to have a position on things. But like I said, we kind of just got thrown in the middle of it a little bit.
I think that's super important. I know a lot of people know, but a lot of people don't know about your charitable function as Gasparilla Music Festival.
Yeah, it's a big part of what we do. We're the organization is a 501c3. We were founded in 2011, the year before we did our first festival. And we were set up with the IRS just to do a community music festival. So that's our primary purpose. And I think about the second year, we started a program just because we saw this huge need here locally with funding for the arts being cut for our schools. So we said, let's do some more. And we started this program, Recycled Tunes. Originally, we would just collect instruments, repair them, and then donate them to Title I schools in the county, Hillsborough County and Pinellas County as well. And then it's really grown into a big program now. And so the proceeds from the festival help us keep that program going. 2021, which last year was very challenging for the schools. Going back with coronavirus, they were cutting a lot of money from everything, but also the music teachers are getting hit particularly hard because they could no longer share instruments. Just all these things that they were doing to just get by. A lot of these classes will go like a beginner 5th grade guitar ensemble at a school we'll have 40 kids and 15 guitars. So that's how they teach.
Oh,
they
wow.
they have to just sit, take turns, sit, take
Wow.
turns, and they couldn't even do that. So
Right.
they're already kind of hamstrung, and now it's like almost impossible. So. So we were actually, fortunately in a very good position to help out. Even when we weren't able to put on a festival last spring, we just were in a good spot that we could help out. So we got super busy. We did a total of 750 instruments that we provided last year to Hillsborough County schools.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
That's incredible.
And along that exact dialogue line, when we get and talk a little bit more about word of mouth, that's something I want to talk about, of not just the big topic, hey, there's a show. It's having that word of mouth about what it can do. And,
Sure.
and those things that everybody knows the show, but maybe they don't know this other thing that is going to get more people talking and get more people to cough up some money to go see something totally worthwhile.
Yeah.
Real quick, Terry, you've been on this podcast before,
I have.
but not in your new role.
No.
So what are you doing now?
So I'm back in the building. I stepped away from the company for a couple years to go pursue other endeavors. And the whole time there was just kind of this underlying tone to every conversation that I had with Will of how do we get Terry back here, right? And just a few weeks ago, I got back from a 5-day trip to Honduras, and it changed something in me, right? I just kind of took a different look at how I've been living my life, both personally and professionally, right? And came in, and Will and I sat down, and we were talking, and we got serious about figuring out how to make it work. And the growth that we've been blessed to experience here at Gorilla Gurus and TampaPrinter.com over the last few years, it presents challenges, as you probably know as well as anybody, right? As you experience that type of rapid growth, there's new problems that you never considered, and my experience kind of lends itself to it, right? And it really is a part of my passion is identifying solutions and working with people. So I'm back. We're calling me the director of operations, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I like it. It's fancy. It sounds good. I probably don't do the title any justice, but I'm happy to be back in the building, back on the team, and hopefully on the podcast, more to come.
Think
Man.
that worthy of a cheers?
Cheers.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Congrats on being back.
Thank you
Good
so
to see
much. Yeah, it's good to see you guys again. Thanks for having me.
Good cocktail.
A little on the sweet side.
Little hair of the horse that bit me from Gasparilla weekend.
Yeah, for anybody who's watching this out of context, and you will be because we don't air this live, this past weekend was the Gasparilla Music Festival.
Gasparilla
Gasparilla invasion, the pirate invasion, right? And so with that, you kill the brain cells to remember where you were.
Yep.
Right.
And
The longest Monday of the year for the city of Tampa.
I'll tell you what. So I've been in Tampa 30 years, okay? And ever since I'm 7 years old. The first time I went to Gasparilla as a little kid, 30 years ago, kids could go to Gasparilla. You know this, right?
Yeah.
Now, probably not, right?
No,
but 30 years ago, we would go for the main parade. And ever since I was a little kid, I've always thought, we should have Monday off after this. There's no way the city of Tampa should have to show up and clock in 9 a.m. on Monday morning. And even coming in today, I had a great weekend. I stayed away from the parade. I didn't get involved in any of it. I came in 100%, and even I felt like that this is a holiday. This should be a holiday, right? Super Bowl Monday, right? Should be a holiday. I think everybody agrees on that.
Yeah.
And Gasparilla Monday here in Tampa absolutely should be a holiday, in my opinion.
Well, and not to date myself, but a few years older than you, it actually Monday used to be a holiday. It used to be called Fair Day, and it was always the Monday after Gasparilla, and all the public schools had the day off. And I don't know why they quit doing that.
They moved it to an arbitrary Friday.
Is that
the
what it
Friday
was? And
doesn't
then
even
they
make sense.
started
Fair?
the kids parade and all that. But
So the all the schools get a day off in Hillsborough County to go to the state fair, and it's in like 2 weeks. It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't line up with anything sensible. But it's the most Florida thing that you could do, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
just no, this thing that makes great sense of having the kids off and the children's parade and all of that. We're gonna do away with that.
Yeah.
We're gonna confuse everybody, So
we used to just having memories too. When I was a little kid, it was just one parade, and we just collected those fake gold coins and bullet casings. So the pirates would shoot their gun and throw the bullet, and the kids would scramble around trying to get bullet casings. Like, that's a very distinctively Tampa thing. Throwing bullet casings to little kids.
Back to my New Orleans days, I lived for a long time in New Orleans. Ash Wednesday, brutal. Because all the tourists are gone. Yeah, so on the Mardi Gras is a Tuesday. Ash Wednesday is the next day. It's the whole reason for Mardi Gras.
Okay.
But you get all the tourists in. They usually bail on that Monday. Like, they come in for the big weekend and they take off. And so Monday and Tuesday are really more for the locals. Mm-hmm. And the locals let loose.
Oh.
But then the next, like on that Wednesday, you get up, bleary. I mean, I had a record store. I never closed. I was always open on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And then it takes like a little bit to figure out, like, what do you got on your head? What's going on? Because more than half of the city is Catholic.
Right. Yeah.
And so they had to go and get the ashes.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, you got to, oh man, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yes. Middle of the week. That's got to be brutal.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, though. The team came in, like big boy pants on. Like whatever they did over the weekend, it didn't show today. So I was happy to see that. As the ops guy, you want to see your team performing, and everybody was on their game today. So I loved it.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of marketing that we do. Mm-hmm. It's just part of the job.
That's it. That's it.
You suck it up and
that's right.
Get it done. Because if you don't get to do it.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
All right, let's go to the other room. Let's jump into word of mouth. So for me, my background is experiential marketing. So I started marketing not knowing I was in marketing. I ran a record store and I did shows.
Yep.
And so I'm just out telling anybody I can about the shows, handing out flyers, putting up posters, getting hassled by the cops or the parking lot attendants. And didn't realize that was even marketing. Then eventually went to work for an agency that represented R.J. Reynolds, and we were the first people in bars pimping smokes. So there, word of mouth is crucial. We don't have the print ads. We don't have radio ads. We don't have TV ads. So everything you're going to communicate has to be person to person. Mm-hmm. So that kind of became my specialty.
Got a good product, though.
Right. I mean, it
sells itself.
It does.
It does, but the competition is fierce.
Sure. Yeah.
Everybody's after the same people.
Yep.
And that group of people gets smaller and smaller. So learning how to talk to people and get that to work became everything for what we were doing, although there's a lot of different arms of it that make it work. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about from the big picture. What I think word of mouth marketing is the Fabergé ad. Fabergé Organics, he'll tell two friends and she'll tell two friends and so on and so on and so on from the early 80s, which was Heather Locklear.
Yeah.
That of you can only touch so many people, no matter what you do.
So for most of our viewers and listeners, I apologize for the interruption. You have no idea what commercial McMike's talking about right now.
Oh,
I got two questions today. What is this? Right when we were going over our notes, think about the most popular commercial of your day. The Heather Locklear shampoo commercial was that of the early to mid 80s. I faintly remember it, but I was thinking about it. Anybody younger than me has had a touch on that one,
right?
But I don't even know what a modern day comparison would be because that one really did stick out.
Right. And it answered a lot of the questions. So when I go through of like, hey, here are the challenges and here are the benefits, that ad did it perfectly. And it was weird because it was proto-viral. It was something that you would just hear people mentioning as a stupid joke all the time, but it always tied back to what that brand was. Word of mouth is, sex sells. So sex is the longest advertising, but word of mouth is older than that in terms of general marketing. That if you want somebody to buy your product or go to your show or do your thing, you can tell them to go and that's okay. But if their friends tell them, it has much more power. So
Absolutely.
word of mouth marketing is testimonials. Word of mouth marketing is just friends bullshitting. So a lot of what word of mouth is kind of just garbage out there of like, oh, I saw something online, and you're making conversation. So if you can find a way to make that conversation yours and get people to say it, then basically you're getting free advertising.
Sure.
Yep.
Which you've been able to do these last 11 years.
Yeah, I mean, and there's an evolution to it. We started out, and I'm just funny because I'm looking at your gorilla logo over there. But when we started, we didn't have any money at all, so we had to figure out how to do things without spending a lot of money. And so we kind of took that grassroots sort of guerrilla tactic. One of the things we got we had put it out that we were going to do this festival, and I got just an unsolicited email from this guy, and he said, "Hey, I am the band leader for what was the marching band from Busch Gardens called I think it was the Sheiks of Sahara. They used to walk around like a marching band out there." And I think Busch Gardens had gotten sold at the time, and so they were all laid off. And he's like, "So I got this, like, we've changed our name to the Distinguishment of Brass, and we're just looking for an opportunity to play." And I was like, ding, ding, I got an opportunity. I'm trying to sell this music festival. So we got the guys, we took them down to Howard Avenue, and we just bust into every bar with like a 12-piece marching band and our GMF flyers and like showing people what we're doing to get word of mouth to like how we've evolved now. I think a big part of it when looking at marketing, it is finding ways to have aspects of what you're doing to talk about, whether it's like a food or something else, like, did you see that? But I think it's also an approach where we look at combining digital and traditional marketing. Like, my perspective is like, you might see like a sign, like a billboard. I saw you guys had a billboard.
Yeah.
On Saturday, and somebody was in the car. I was like, "Hey, I know those guys." And there you go. There was one person that was like, "What's guerrilla marketing?" So it was good. Guerrilla gurus. So, but seeing all those things and hearing radio and seeing it pop on ad on your phone, like all those different touches, may not fully register, but eventually you're on your way to meet somebody for coffee, and you just saw that thing, and you're like, "Hey, did you hear about that?" And then all of a sudden your guy at the coffee is like, "Oh, I got a ticket." And then somebody, so that's kind of how we always look at it, is like, your best marketing tool is a ticket buyer, somebody that has a ticket in hand,
right.
Because that's the person who's going to go say, "Hey, this thing's coming up and I'm going to it, it'd be cool if you guys came," or so yeah, that's definitely word of mouth is constantly, we're trying to think of how to get those words coming out of people's mouths.
Well, and I think something that's interesting specifically to GMF is you start out old school with the yard signs, like the real estate yard signs. I've always had them in our yard. GMF time, and I've had neighbors walking by. I'm like, "What is that?" Like they're trying to figure out if it's some kind of a political thing. Or like, no, it's a great show that helps our community. Like you got to go. So that's a solicited word of mouth, which is something I think very interesting, kind of a reverse on, rather than getting people to take it to other people, getting people to ask for it. Like I've got the sticker on my gas tank or the magnet, because it's the only thing on my car that's actually metal. It's a piece of crap CRV, but, but the only thing that the magnet would stick to was the gas cap cover. But I've had people ask me about that too. And so it's like a good opportunity. And there, if you get your loyalists, like the people, like if you can get them to like pull that advocacy out of them, that
for sure.
Because once you start me talking on it, I've gone every year. I've always had a great time. I've gone to GMF, I think one year, there wasn't a single act that I was like, I have to see that. But the quality is always so good, and there's always a bunch of artists that I don't know.
Right.
So like, I'm going to go because the community, the people who come out are always so cool.
Yep. Yeah.
Like it's the friendliest festival I think I've ever been to. So the people are cool, and I always see new acts, especially local acts that blow me away that I didn't know, because you can only go to so many things.
Right.
or stuff coming just across the bridge. Like there's a lot of stuff in St. Pete that in Tampa we don't see, and vice versa.
Yeah, one thing, in that vein too, with the local musicians, and it's really such a big part, and it's so important that we really do spend a lot of time, trying to identify and who those musicians. But one of the cool things for me every year is like, not every local musician can get on the bill every year, but all those people are there either listening to their friends or just there
Right.
because it's like, it's like a touchstone. So like, even if your band's not performing, you're still out there like checking out the other ones. And to me, that's like, that's what makes it all worth it. Like seeing that. But again, that gets back to just word of mouth. I mean, that gets back to, that's a whole crowd of people that whether or not they're playing, they're still talking to all their friends and they do have influence. They're musicians and artists and, have influences over
Right.
the world.
So here's that in real life, right? Blake Yeager of Tribal Style,
Yep.
a local band,
Yep.
right? Raves about GMF. Blake's not the kind of guy to rave about a whole lot, right? he's like kind of selective in what he's loud about, From what I understand, it's taking pictures of the fog, right? And Gasparilla Music Festival. To my knowledge, there's nothing else that he's like gonna want to come tell you about, And I can't remember. Have they played the festival yet or no?
Yeah, they have.
They have.
Yeah.
So I think it was from him having an experience of playing the festival, being there with you guys on the other side. Right?
Yeah. And he's definitely shot it many times.
And he shot it. That's what it is. He photographs too.
Yeah.
And so here's the key in my experience about word of mouth, right? Is who are your ambassadors, right? Who are the people that are out there? How do you connect with a quality ambassador of your brand, right? Blake is one of those guys. If Blake came to me and he said, "Hey, there's a new restaurant, you should go check it out," I'm going to go. I trust him, right? Now, there's certain people, if they came to me and they said, "Hey, there's this great restaurant called Burn Steakhouse," I would be like, I doubt it. Probably not that good, right? So how do you connect with the people that you really want to be an ambassador of your brand? Somebody like Blake for me, right? Is there, are you being strategic about the message?
I think it's strategic about the message. I think it's I think it's what the offering is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's like, for us, it's really never been. I mean, I know at times, and I don't want to be contrarian to a lot of what happens in the world, but it's not necessarily like how many followers you have on a certain platform. Like, I just, I think that becomes more apparent that those are not necessarily realistic numbers all the time. Like, somebody's got 20,000 Instagram followers, they might be 90% paid for. Like, I don't think like that's not how I view it. I just think it's like, we know like the things you're describing, like we know those are things, and we know that there's like, if you go just, spend a little time around our restaurant row, Cali Cucina at GMF, like you'll just see the community there. Like those guys are all helping each other out. Everybody kind of knows each other. I mean, that's a bigger reason for them for being there over, just making money at a festival. Like they're there because they love it. Like, I mean, that's the way we look at all of it. Like, take care of the people that we want to be there and the ones that, believe in community and all these things and really are buying into what we're presenting. I think that's a huge part of it. So, Blake's a great example, and people like that we just know that they're, they see the world kind of the same way, at least parts of the world the same way we do. And it's not superficial. It's real.
Absolutely.
It's authentic, I think, is a word that we throw around a lot too. It's just
Right.
people that can kind of see something that's a little more authentic versus.
Well, and I think that to create a pro word of mouth campaign, it has to be tiered. I don't mean pro like I had to pay for it,
Right.
but pro like
Positive.
this is going to work.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yep.
Is you tier it. So there's the baseline. GMF has this amazing lineup. So for any business, this is who we are and what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have another secondary tier of, and this is why we do it. So then somebody who already knows about it, but isn't sold yet, Now I'm giving them another reason to believe, another reason to pay attention. So, and this is why we do it. And then creating for, like, GMF is perfect, of pockets of tertiary messaging of, hey, this is better than almost any food festival in Tampa. Like, these are local restaurants lined up with some of the most fun festival food that, I mean, I love the State Fair and that festival food, but this is real quality, not just gimmick. Like, there's just really good food out there. So you've got that. Or this is where I can see the first time an act is playing on a big stage. Like, that's, if you're a big music fan, it's like, you can be the first time, like, you'll be the first one to ever see these people play a big stage. That's huge.
Well, I think, and you're kind of hitting on something that's been sort of somewhat part of the plan from the beginning. Again, like, we had ideas, but it's also like never the bandwidth to get everything out at once. But I always compare just to, like, you know, the peeling an onion, you know, getting through layers of things. So, like, a lot of that's intentional in the fact that, like early on, people were like, you need to have, like, an app so everybody knows everything that's going on, and we need to have signage showing. I was like, you know what, if we just throw it all out there in 1 year, then people will be like, you know, but then you come back the next year, it's like, oh, I didn't realize that was going on here. Like,
Right.
So there's definitely, like, some thought. I think we're in a somewhat different situation because we are a nonprofit, so we have different motivations than other people. So we have supporters that the first couple of years were like, hey, that was great. Like, you know, you guys need to have Coldplay headlining it next year. And I'm like, yeah, that might be your 20 or 30. Like, we're on a different, like, you know, sort of a long-term perspective. And that's how we view sustainability for our brand, is like, you know, like, let's not just spit it all out at once. Like, let's, like, slowly kind of, like, you know, keep growing and slowly kind of, you know, reveal things. And that's all kind of been by design. I mean, there's always pressure to do things bigger and faster, but
well, and I think that also allowing the right message to find the right person is important. Somebody I forgot, but I've used it a ton of times. I'm always pimping GMF just because I want more of my friends to be there. Mm-hmm. Like, I know I'm going, but I want everybody I know to be there because that's more fun.
Yeah.
And there are always those people that it's never where you want to lead because it's turn off for some, but, like, this is the most affordable dope festival in the country.
Oh, without a doubt.
Like, anywhere else, you're paying $150 a day. And like, I was over at Hooch and Hive a few days ago. There's a gal, you'll pay 24, 25. So is really just starting to get into that kind of universe. Her only experience was Vans Warped Tour. Right. She's like, everything is so expensive. I'm like, you have no idea. You're so spoiled in Tampa. Right. So spoiled that, you know, you want to go to any real major festival, you're looking at $600 a person. Like, and then hotels, and then all of that other stuff.
We go out and, like, talk to ticketing companies. You know, a lot of them kind of shut down with COVID last year, so I was kind of having to redo that again. And it was like, you know, it was like one of their top 3 bullet points pitching their ticket company is their payment plans. And I was like, we're not that kind of festival. But literally, like, that's what they're selling. Like, you know, hey, you want to go to this festival next year, you know, you can do it for $100 a month. Like, we'll just directly take it out of your checking account.
And, like, wait, I'm just going to a weekend festival. I'm not going on a 2-week cruise.
Well, they were doing that with the, what's the one, the big one in Daytona that got canceled last year? Rocktober.
Biketoberfest?
No, the
Rocktoberfest, I think it was.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Welcome to Rockville.
Welcome to Rockville.
Yeah.
That was the first time I saw this buy now, pay later thing rolled out. And, like, I think it's a firm or some company like that. And I was like, kidding me? We got people financing concerts now?
Yeah.
And that's a rabbit hole we could get deep down. But but you look at, like, the one-day show. It's all everybody's talking about it right now.
When we were young.
In Vegas, when we were young.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
You look at the one-day VIP ticket for that, $500. Still got to fly to Vegas. Still got to stay in Vegas. Still got to eat in Vegas.
At most can see a third of the bands.
Right.
And none of the show makes sense, right? Now, here's the thing. This is like my heyday, right? These are the soundtracks to my high school, the bands that they have on this list. So I saw it and I was like, let's go. And then I looked and I was like, no. And word of mouth killed it for me. I was on the website, signed up for the pre-sale. I was ready to go. Tickets were there. Talking to my sisters, we're all getting ready to buy the tickets. And then the conversation about, certain bands not knowing that they were playing and
Right.
other bands not knowing that it is what it was and things like that. And I was like, wait a second. And it was word of mouth online, which I think is an interesting facet of this conversation that we're having.
I was just about to say, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something that's important in messaging and where we're at now, where everything's on video.
Right. But there's a flip side on that one. I mean, I think word of mouth also like blew that thing up too. Like, we wouldn't even be talking about it right now. Like it was just,
So far at the point, people weren't going to be able to get tickets.
Well, they just added a third day.
Oh, okay.
So they just added the third day. So whatever was happening that was negative and scared me away, apparently.
It's like,
I'm in the minority.
The
right?
no news is, or bad news is good news. Like, like a lot of that negative just turned to like, I got to be there. Like people are talking about it. So,
right.
And so like, I think to touch on word of mouth, they're very different. Online word of mouth versus face-to-face word of mouth. Because online word of mouth doesn't bring you more credibility for the most part, unless it's somebody you really know and trust and they posted something.
Sure.
So there can be a lot of noise, but whatever. But that works both ways. Mm-hmm. Like even the positive, you see companies, we don't do it, but you see some companies like where you're hiring testimonials. Right. So they'll have influencers flood it, but that means nothing because you don't really know who these people are. At best, what kind of outfits they wear, or what other products they buy, who are also paying them. But the face-to-face gives you pure credibility because you're less likely to bullshit somebody when you look at them in the eye.
Absolutely. And that, I think that's what, so yourself, for example, the team that you have around you are real people, real members of the Tampa Bay community, right?
Yep.
And I think Tampa's, if we're not already there, it's like right around the corner. We're right around the corner, or we're getting close to hitting this place where you have like a social class that's like, they're not there. You're not going to see them out to eat. You're not going to see them at the grocery store. You're not going to see them at an event that you happen to be interested in, that they're just attending as a person, right? And even still, like right now, it's one of the coolest things about Tampa is you look at like our sports teams, our local celebrities, you see them out and about, right? They're there and they're real. And, for the most part, they're like pretty, personable, willing to say hi, willing to talk. For example, I'm out doing the cleanup dive yesterday and we just got out of the water. We're sorting through the trash and I hear this voice over my right shoulder. Hey, and I look up. It's Mayor Castor. I was like, hey, what are you doing? It's like, no, just coming to see if you guys need some help. Like,
that's awesome.
We'd love some help,
Rad.
And we had a conversation about what we were out there doing and some of the efforts that we've been putting in. And she was just right there to chat with us, talk to us. And here was the amazing thing. She's by herself. She didn't roll up with anybody, no escort.
That's awesome.
Right. And that's, I think, you look at the growth in Tampa, and I think Tampa natives and people that have been here for a while were starting to get a little curmudgeon-y about it. We're having to deal with traffic. Right. We don't like that. They're trying to New York or Florida. We don't like that. Right. But at the same time, there's this endearing quality in that all of these people that mean so much to our market are just out there. And that word of mouth, in my opinion, tip top, right? I met the owner of Gasparilla Music Festival. I met the founder, right? He's a great guy. We sat down, we had a drink, talked about the Bucks, talked about whatever. That sends a message that I think is more valuable to any brand on a local level than I could ask for, right?
Well, and all of David's team.
And that's what
I
I'm
run
saying.
into your team all the time, and a lot of us run in the same circles, and a lot of us don't. Mm-hmm. But still see each other out. Maybe we're wearing a GMF thing or something, and and then it becomes also a huge motivator for word of mouth. Is becoming an insider.
Oh man!
Like as soon as you have the inside word, well, you don't want to tell everybody, but you have to tell everybody, you know, so that message is going to come out.
Yep.
So if you go, hey, by the way, here's something really cool going on. They're not telling everybody, but this is happening. Then you're like, oh, what? Well, okay. Well, don't tell everybody because that's going to ruin it.
Now you're invested.
Not tell everybody.
Yeah, sure.
And so I wanted to throw out like just a couple of the tricks and tips that I have for doing word of mouth marketing when we have teams out.
Mm-hmm.
Big key. And this is, you could have, lobby of a store, like say our print shop downstairs or anywhere. Definitely works for the music festival. Is you get the person you want to talk about you to repeat it to you.
Mm.
So the easiest on the face and then the hardest to get it really right, but it's the way I like it the best, is you tell them about something. You go, so what do you think about that? Like what's your favorite, like you tell them a few things, what's your favorite part, and get them to tell you. Then you give them positive feedback, massive positive feedback. So I was part of a research study where we found out that if you gave somebody positive feedback, they were 30 times more likely to repeat what they said than if you just let it sit, because you're getting those endorphins.
Yep.
Like I said something and they were really cool about what I just said. I want that again. So I'm going to say that again. And that's some definite, potentially evil marketing. But if we do it for the right reasons, get people to like, so what's your favorite thing about Gasparilla Music Festival? And somebody's just like, well, I really like, the charitable aspect of it. I like that they're giving instruments to kids. I'm like, you're damn right.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Doesn't that feel good? And they're like, yeah, it does. I walk away, they are definitely going to say it. And they're going to say it multiple times to multiple people, because as long as you can hone it and make sure they're saying it right, that's the danger, that they say it wrong.
Yeah.
If you get them to say it right, then that becomes infectious.
Well, the key piece there is that you've tapped into a psychology of people that nobody wants to admit. I'm happy to. I'm well aware about myself. People are self-centered.
Yeah.
They're so self-obsessed, right? And all they're thinking while you're talking to them about this music festival that they've never heard of and they're not really interested in is themselves. And you get them to talk about it and you take interest in it, and now it's theirs, right? So you're inceptioning them, right? You're Leonardo DiCaprioing them without them knowing. And then you're pouring the applause and praise on it. And I mean,
but they also have ownership. So I'm not fooling them into anything.
Yep.
Like they have complete ownership of it. And they can do with this new information whatever they want. But we also found it's the only thing that works with introverts.
That's interesting.
Because they hold back so much, generally, they don't get the positive affirmation when they push it forward, generally.
Zach, is that true?
So this is an opportunity where you were giving them ownership of information and you were praising them for that information that will behoove you, could behoove them. I mean, especially with a lot of introverts that I know, I've got, it's weird, like a lot of my friends, and I'm the opposite, but they will value being an insider more than anybody else.
Sure.
Because it's theirs. They have it. So
I see that for sure. I'm
That
an
kind of-
introvert, so
that kind
Are
of
you?
that kind of ownership.
That's surprising.
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yep. So, but I see that, I mean, with our program, I see that a lot. I see introverts valuing that a lot more than an extrovert would, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
Now, I found that a lot of talent, right? Like musical talent, especially. Very introverted.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I think that there's probably a correlation to that and maybe other issues that performers get long-term, habits that they might develop. I mean, I think that could be related to being an introvert for sure.
Sure, I mean, just
as an introvert, like some of that stuff, like just communicating and things like that or putting on a show could be draining, because it's not your normal, like, makeup. So,
right. Well, and
so I can see that with performers, having to kind of put on a show on a regular basis. Like, hey, that could it could be draining, and you could need some other things to help it out, or you know.
Yeah. Tampa, I've always been fascinated, where I've lived in like bigger cities or faster cities, where if you're going to get around, you've got to be a little alpha just to get by, like say Chicago.
Right.
But here, not so much. You can be a great musician, great artist, well respected, and you don't have to push. Because there's not as much clutter, as much noise, and people are a lot more chill. But I think it shows up a lot. When my wife listens, she'll laugh because I point it out all the time. How many of our great musicians are mumblers on stage? They can sing incredibly.
But when they talk,
as soon as they start talking, the city more than anywhere
I've
else
seen it
I've
now
been.
I've never thought about it, but I've seen
don't
it
notice
for
it.
sure. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing how much that happens. Where like in Chicago, and I love them both, but Chicago, everybody has their big corny shtick.
yeah,
You know, like if you see them 3 times in 3 weeks, you saw them say the exact same stuff
Right,
in between
right.
songs.
Yeah. I
I
think
call
here
that the social distortion effect. I was on the Warped Tour one year with them, and they said the exact same thing between every song, every show, or every time that we started mouthing it.
oh wow,
So like I had it down to the rhythm of everything he would say, and finally, the guy who ran Warped Tour had to pull me into his bus. You guys got to knock that shit off. Like the band knows now.
so that's like that goes back to creating an experience, right? Something original, something that people are going to talk about. I think, we talked about my friend being a great ambassador of the music festival. On the other side, my sisters-in-law, right? They worked the festival one year, right? Doing whatever they do. And they had also worked another local festival, similar somewhat in nature. I won't name it, but they had the experience they shared about working with you guys was so different than the other one in a more positive way that left a lasting effect. And what they talked about was the experience that you're creating within your environment. How much is that a thought going into the planning?
It's a huge part. I mean,
Okay,
I think
that's intentional.
so much thought goes into that, and how, everybody there, from volunteers or somebody working, like I mentioned, like the restaurants that are there, to the artists performing, just, within our means, making that like, as great a possible experience. I mean, to us, that there's no difference between that and the attendee. I mean, they're all, everybody there is a participant. There's no, in our minds, no distinction. Now, I mean, some of those people are working to make the attendee experience better, but it's still, so we put a lot of thought into that, and being respectful for everybody that's there. You mentioned the yard signs, as an example. We really do. We get a lot of those out every year, and it is a good, like, neighborhood. Your neighbors got it, and like, what is that? And eventually everybody in your block knows what it is.
Right.
After they've had a sign, but
and it becomes
we also don't go put those signs on public property or right of ways or anything. We're very, occasionally somebody might get overzealous and put one, on a busy streets corner or something like that, but we'll like pull them up. It's we're there with people permission, and it's just, you can just feel it. We're not running around putting it on every street corner and
right.
like,
Well, I love it.
in your face, and like, that's kind of obnoxious, and it's going to sit there for 6 months after our festival. Like it's, like there's thought behind all of that stuff, and
Yeah. I mean,
respecting everybody.
I live in Seminole Heights, and so like turnover's crazy, new people all the time. And I'm like, man, okay, well, the GMF signs, at least I know who's cool.
Right.
You don't meet everybody right away. So I'm like, okay, well, they're cool.
Well, that's another thing too. And some people were like, yeah, I just always see those, but I don't know how to get in the inner circle to get a GMF sign. I'm like, you just ask and we'll have one in your yard. And
We're on the way.
Yeah.
Here we come.
There's no secret handshake to get that. Like, we're happy to put them out there. But that's funny. But people have that perception like, oh, I got to know somebody to get one of those signs out.
So if you're watching this and you want a GMF sign out in
Well,
your
let us
front yard,
know.
how do they reach out to you? Just
Best way is email info@gasparillamusic.com.
There you go.
Just send us your address and there'll be one there.
there you go. You got a sign on the
24
way
hours.
right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Go down my checklist. That could be a whole nother thing. Say like we could go like digital word of mouth can be its own thing altogether.
It's its own universe.
This is
entirely.
good old fashioned with the old
Yes,
fashioned
the old fashioned.
word of mouth.
I think the key distinction there is this, and it's a term that's overused now. It's mistreated, but the organic reach that you have through good old fashioned word of mouth, right? Organic meaning that it's natural. It happens by its own course. It's not forced in any way, shape, or form. However, there's some things as we talked about, and and we know very well, there's some things that you can do to be intentional about generating a specific conversation, right?
Right.
In that word of mouth, right? So when you bring on the Black Pumas as your headliner, there's going to be conversation regarding the Black Pumas in the community, correct?
Correct.
And that's all I've been hearing about.
Yeah.
Right? Which is crazy. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to do it. I'd never heard of them, right? No clue who they are. The last 2 weeks, all I hear is Black Pumas, right? Black Pumas, Black Pumas, Black Pumas.
Yeah. I mean, they have that organic growth, not unlike quite a while ago now, but like the Black Keys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there were the few people in the know, but once it hit, it hit.
Right.
And so you have that messaging where I'm sure there's some kind of thought when you're looking at who's going to be our headliner this year, right? You're assessing it and you're making a decision that is best in line with your brand. I think we all try to do that. But then the organic effect from there, I think is very, very important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Black Pumas is a good example. I mean, that's just somebody that was highly requested too. Like I could run into 10 people and you got for the last 2 years, you got to get the Black Pumas. And
Wait. Well, my partner who couldn't make it, that's his favorite band right now. Before you guys announced, he's been on that for a year.
We got to go deeper on what you just said.
Yeah, sure.
So for the last 10 years.
No, two years.
Yeah. So for the last 2 years, you have people coming to you and saying, David, we love Gasparilla Music Festival. We love what you're doing. We need you to get Black Pumas here. And you're making decisions on that level based on those conversations.
No,
okay.
yeah, no, absolutely.
It plays
not.
a role though.
It definitely you hear it a few times. I mean, it also may be you guys need to get the Black Keys, and they're like, well, the little bit out of our budget. They're
Right.
playing an arena tour right now, so. But there's that, and it definitely, when you hear it from again, going back to talking about Blake or somebody like that, when you hear it from the right people, you're like, maybe that is the right band, and maybe those are the people that are in your ear now,
right,
talking about it. So there's filtering of that information, but I knew
in the logistical nightmare of putting on a giant show,
right?
Of there's tour schedules and all of those things that I'm so happy I don't do anymore.
right. I mean, yeah, they could have easily not been available, but with something like that, and it was also up until when we actually booked them months ago, they had never even played in the state of Florida, I don't think. So as much as they were growing and gaining popularity, they've never even been down here. They ended up, I think, a couple months ago playing in Key West at a festival, which
doesn't count.
Right. That's its own country.
Cuba.
It's its own country.
Yeah, that's Cuba.
So it was if we could get them, kind of one of their first shows ever in the state, definitely in this market, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Wow. And that'll get people definitely excited about it. Versus somebody that's, there's two sides. There's sometimes this band's been here 6 years in a row and they're building a following, so that's good. But also just again back to the word of mouth, they've never been here. Like that's something for people to talk about. So that's the message we want to put out too. So you'll see it in our messaging, like first ever show, in market kind of thing.
And that, so like in the last of my tips and tricks is the classic, keep it simple, stupid.
Oh man.
That whatever that messaging is, it needs to be repeatable. I've worked with a lot of clients where they have so much like technical end of what their product is, and they're tech people, so they want to push that. Like that's not how word of mouth works. Like that only works with professionals on that level, and then they're not having a conversation. They're talking specs about things.
Right.
So that's not really word of mouth. That's like, well, tell me about these 3 things, and then they'll repeat the specs. But keeping it simple, because that way people can own it.
Mm-hmm.
Like let them fill it in, even if some of it's bullshit. So is marketing.
But, I mean, I think it's so important, and to be honest, that's the kind of thing I spend a lot of time thinking. It's like, how do you boil it down to something that's like palpable, easy to spread, and not just verbally, but like, again, digitally or on a billboard. And, I think that's where professionals like you guys excel, is being able to do that. But it's so critical. I mean, again, like when I say like pulling back layers, it's like, if you just kind of throw it all out there at once, it's like, it's just
too much.
Our brains aren't like that anymore. Like we can't read more than, 3 words at a time. Like
20 second
like
intervals.
everything's just got to be like just that. And if you try to say too much all at once, it gets lost. So the more you can boil it down and concise and spread out messages, okay, now this is the message we want to get out. A month later, this is the message we kind of want to work on a little bit. Then, I think that helps. It helps keeps things fresh and keeps the ball rolling downhill.
I think it's important to always keep your eyes and ears open, because your message should be evolving.
Sure.
I know, at least for myself, whatever the first thing is that I came up with, probably crap.
Right.
But it was the best thing that I came up with when I came up with it. So, but you put it out there, keep your ears open, see how people are repeating it. But as importantly, keep your eyes open and see how the person they're talking to is reacting.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I'm like,
Absolutely.
okay, they're saying something they're excited about, but if the other person isn't, then I need to rehone that dialogue so that all of that excitement that person has will connect with the other person.
That's boots on the ground market research, right? Which is very hard to do, right? It's very, very difficult to do.
It can be done.
You have that opportunity.
It can be done from macro to micro.
Sure.
Like we have done. If you want to hire us, we'd love to. I'd love to do it.
But it is keeping your ears open, like you said.
Everything
it's
from like just
listening,
like a neighborhood bar
Mm-hmm.
of like, this is how your bar staff should talk about your bar when they're not in the bar, because they are the influencers.
Mm-hmm.
Now if they hate you, if you're a shitty manager and they hate you, then don't expect it. But if you've got a good thing going and everybody digs it, they go like, hey, when we describe ourselves, this is a lot easier for people to grab. Let's do this, and everybody can get behind it, and that creates that growth.
Yep.
Definitely.
All right, so I'm out of notes.
I think we covered a lot of talking about word of mouth. I have one thing I want to know more about is aside from the festival itself and being a part of GMF. I sit on the board of a 501c3 myself. It's something I'm very interested in, passionate about. How can people get involved and contribute to the charitable works that you're doing that really sets you apart in our city outside of the music festival? Is there something they can do there?
Yeah, I mean, well, I always say my quick answer is just buy a ticket to the music festival. I mean, even if it's not your thing, and even if you're out of town that weekend, it's $45 ticket, and it's going to a good cause. I mean, that's where the money is ultimately benefiting. And not to get totally off track, but I want to go back to your early marketing days. When we started our instrument program for kids, and not to sound cynical, and this is like totally tongue in cheek a little bit, but when we were having conversations about like, what else can we do in the community? My head was like, how do we get like kids coming to our music festival in 10 years? Like, how do we get like an 8-year-old
How do you
coming?
plant that seed?
How do we plant that seed? And I equated it to like big tobacco.
Yeah,
I was
right.
like, what would big tobacco do? I was like, well, let's get them start playing music really young, and then they'll have to go to our festival. But kind of kidding about that. But that was, at least part of, from my perspective, like looking at it long term. But that's the biggest thing for us is just, getting a ticket to the festival, like showing that support that like goes a long way, and that money. We do have opportunities where people can volunteer. They can just shoot us an email at volunteers@GasparilloMusic.com. We have instrument drives. We currently don't have one planned, but we have them usually 2 times throughout the year where people can bring instruments, and we give them a free ticket to our festival in exchange for that instrument. So you have an old like sax or guitar that you haven't played since you were in high school or college or whatever, that you could finally give up your dream of becoming the saxophone player for the E Street Band or whatever. Like, dust it off. Like, we take it, we refurbish it. We work with a couple music stores locally, like that, like a sax. We'll clean all the pads. We'll get it ready to go. And we'll find either a classroom or a specific kid that can use that to learn how to play. So that's a big deal. We do take instruments all year. You can drop them by our office, but we only do the tickets during those events.
During
just
those drives.
so we can kind of build some hype around those. And
If you can remind me, anytime you just get a wild hair, let me know. We'll put out those blasts through our social media.
Absolutely.
On ours. More than happy to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And
yeah.
I mean, so like the worst option that I heard was buy a $45 ticket, right? And let's be, I just spent $45 at Wendy's on lunch today. Like, that's so cheap, right?
Right.
That is so crazy. And it's all, I would love to equate it to going to a Rays game, but it's such a different experience, right? Like your experience is so much better than that. But that's one of my favorite things, is that Tampa is still accessible. Right? Mm-hmm. And the things that we do here on a local level are still accessible to really all of the community.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And the fact that even at that price point, you're able to give back as much as you guys are is fantastic. I really, really appreciate that.
Well,
I think
thank you.
Every time I've gone to GMF, I've made at least 5 friends every time, which is crazy. That's something I love. It's one of the only places you can go where if you're sitting and you're watching a band, the person next to you will just start talking to you, or you can start talking to them, and it's not weird. It's just like, oh my God, this is great.
That's the kind of stuff very cool to hear, because I'm running around like miss that, but like anecdotes like that, the go
vibe
a long
there
way.
is so relaxed and fun. And my wife, this will be her, I think, 4th event, volunteer bartending, and she always refers to it as a family.
It is.
Yeah, she's just like, oh, so-and-so's coming back, or so-and-so moved away, but they're coming back to work. Right. And she's excited like it's a freaking family reunion.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's an awesome culture you've got.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for saying
absolutely.
All right. So I guess
I think we're good.
To wrap up, everybody needs to go to the Gasparilla Music Festival.
How do they find you online? GasparilloMusic.com?
Yeah, GasparilloMusic.com. And the festival this year is February 25th through 27th. So coming up.
3 days.
Yeah.
3-day festival. Where's it at?
Curtis Sixon Park in downtown Tampa.
Fantastic.
And the variety of acts, unbelievable.
That's all. Yeah.
It's just like, it's so across the board. I was looking at the
lineup on the last page, and I was like, are you kidding me? How do you do this?
Some of my friends have a new, punk rock and roll band, Ghost Front.
Ghost Front. Yeah.
Like, I'm super psyched to see that. Like, I just saw it recently, and I just want to see more and more. But I think Boycott is my favorite pet band. The 12-year-old girls.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Their parents are music teachers.
Okay.
And they're 12-year-old rock and roll band.
Love it.
we've had some of those now that we're 10 years. We've had some of those 12-year-old bands that have gone on. They've stuck together, and we've had them back. So that's like awesome to see, and they're so talented. That band that if they can keep it together,
right.
We have a band that's playing, I think Friday night, called Parrotfish, and we've had them before, but they were a bunch of guys that grew up here, and they all actually went to Nashville together to go to college, went to the same school in Nashville at Belmont, which is a great music program, and stuck together. And they're just a great example. They've gotten so good, and just I think within the last week or so, just got a pretty decent like record deal. So I don't know the details, but it was actually a pretty big label reached out and was like, hey, they're continuing to grow. So like that stuff's really cool. So seeing a band like that, like Boycott,
yeah,
they can keep it together. It may have a different name when they get to college,
right.
But like,
well, I think,
but
I feel like it's a 5-piece or a 6-piece.
Yeah.
So that many 12-year-olds sticking together for a long time.
it's a long shot. Yeah, the odds aren't in their favor.
But or maybe so, or maybe they become 3 awesome bands.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right. They all know how to play, so they're halfway there.
Yeah.
Actually, they all know how to play better than a bunch of my friends who are adult professionals.
Right. It's like that sometimes. That's awesome, man. I can't wait for the festival. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, we're super excited. So this is going to be a great year. And yeah, you mentioned it's 3 days, which we did last year. We had acts, but this is the first time we're doing like a full Friday. I mean, the gates open at 4, but that's the Black Pumas are Friday night. So we've got like pretty big momentum just building that day up. And we just wanted another, like, Sunday is great and it's got its own vibe to it, but we just wanted another non-school night to have some people could blow it out.
Well, I feel like Friday we'll be closing the office a little early.
I think so. I think I'm okay with that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we're excited for that. So yeah, thank you guys for having me.
David, thank you.
Thanks for being with us. Absolutely.
This was fun.
Yeah, this was
a lot of fun.
Thank you.